All right, guys, this is the Rubin Report. I am Dave Rubin. It is May 30th, 2025, and you may note we are on location. That's right. Yesterday, we were live from CPAC, Hungary, and it was a little noisy in the background. And the fine folks over here in Budapest at the Sir Roger Scruton Cafe have been kind enough to lend us a little portion of their cafe. I'm actually sitting at really legendary that's the only way to describe him. Legendary conservative thinker, British conservative thinker, Roger Scruton, whose ideas clearly transcended borders and became hugely influential here in Hungary. I'm sitting at his desk. I'm sitting on his chair. They normally don't let people do this. They were kind enough to let us do it. And this cafe is really a wonderful place for people to meet and chat and talk about ideas. Ironically, it is next door to a communist cafe. So you've got a conservative cafe here, communist cafe literally on the other side of this wall. But it's been a wonderful trip to Hungary so far. I spoke at CPAC yesterday. I did a solo talk and then brought on Viktor Orban's political director, Balázs Orbán, who's been on the show before. No relation there, although they're both named Orbán. Then I had a private meeting with Viktor Orbán with a few other people, which was really wonderful. I was unbelievably impressed with his ability not only to talk about politics and all the problems of the day, but his political philosophy and why he thinks the way he thinks was really quite something. And then we did a live Rubin Report at the Danube Institute last night. And the meeting with Viktor Orbán ran late, so I couldn't even do a run through. And there were about, I don't know, a couple hundred people there, and had about 10 guests. And it was just a great night. And it's really been a wonderful trip, and off to Israel after this, which I'll tell you about in a second. But I just want to tell you a little bit about the Roger Scruton Cafe, since they were so kind to let us use their location for today. The mission of the cafe is to share and pass on the Scruton spirit, which honors Hungarian conservative tradition and values to a wider audience. They're committed to presenting a conservative form of value creation in a way and place that appeals to future generations. They do this through intellectual debates, professional conferences, as well as cultural and gastroeconomic events. The community space also serves as an intellectual workshop where they aim to provide answers to today's pressing questions and offer guidance. Their motto, "I know what I do," reflects their intention to share knowledge and values through their programs and spirits. Sir Roger Scruton faithfully represents the conservative way of thinking and approach that defines their community space. And I can say you can really feel that spirit right here. And I think that spirit is pretty consistent with what we do at the Rubin Report. So yeah, I'm really honored to be here, and thanks for everybody at the Roger Scruton Cafe for lending us some of their facilities today. And very quickly, and then we will get to it, I promise you. From here, I'm going to Israel. I have a live event on June 2nd in Tel Aviv, and then on June 4th in Jerusalem. Tickets are still available. You can go to daverubin.com/events, or I believe there might be a QR code popping up on your screen right now. And now let's jump back to America, because even when Dave Rubin leaves the country, things still do happen, apparently. We're going to dive into all of it. And really, today is a dissection of really what's happening to the Democrats. And it's important to note, it's interesting. I'm in a place here, Hungary, that has strong conservative leadership, and you can see that it has protected this country, and it is clean, and it is safe, and they have dealt with the immigration stuff properly. They pay a price they quite literally pay a price when it comes to immigration. They have to pay 1 million euros a day because they close their borders. So it's a fine that the EU puts on them. So they pay 365 million euros a day to the EU just to keep their borders closed, which is absolutely insane. But I put that to the backdrop of our political system, which is right now we have sane conservative leadership. And as you know, it's going well in the red states, and the Trump administration is doing a lot of stuff, and it's doing it quickly. And I would say largely pretty well, while we have one party that doesn't do it well. And it's worth talking about the guys that aren't doing it well, because we don't want to go back to that. So that's where we will start. David Hogg, we've played a bunch of videos of this child, and that's what he is lately. This child who had a very short tenure as the co-chair of the Democratic National Committee. Then they booted him out basically because he's white, because wokeness destroys everything. Well, anyway, he was exposed on a Project Veritas video. This is from 8 days ago. He was asked by what we now know was an undercover Project Veritas agent, who really was running the White House. It's hard to believe that people fall for these things at this point, but here we go.
The question for me is, like, how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew, or few people knew about Biden, well, the president of the United States?
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be like a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue was like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress to you enough.
Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like, had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the left. Like, I would avoid him. Like, he was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony Bernal.
I've never seen him.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But he wielded an enormous amount of power, and I can't stress to you how much power he had at the White House.
Yeah. So it's starting to drip and drab out. The stuff that we all, at least I can't say we knew because we didn't know who was doing it, right? I've always said that. We didn't know, was it Nancy Pelosi running the show or Chuck Schumer, or was it Barack Obama behind the scenes or some cadre of other people? But we knew something wasn't right with Joe Biden, and we certainly knew he wasn't running the operation. Now we know an awful lot more about the auto pen. Yesterday we talked about how David Sachs said that Elizabeth Warren was kind of running something, at least as it pertained to the auto pen. I mean, we will find out way more, but now finding out that, at least to some extent, that Jill Biden's chief of staff, so it wasn't even Joe Biden's chief of staff that was running the show, Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, who for some reason, despite being a doctor, never was able to look and figure out what was wrong with her husband, or maybe she wanted something to be wrong with him so she could pull the strings, that it was her chief of staff running the White House. Is that the guy that you voted for? Well, you probably didn't vote for Joe Biden anyway, but anyone who voted for Joe Biden, did you vote for a bunch of shadowy figures to run the White House? Did you vote for someone who is technically working for the First Lady to be running the White House? So there is a massive scandal here. And it seems to me for this one, you know, the bad people always get away with the bad things. Something seems a little stickier for this one. There is so much here in terms of who did what, and there's going to be so much evidence to come out of who had the auto pen and who was in charge and all of these things that I think maybe some dominoes are going to fall on this one. And let's throw back to a video from the Biden presidency. This was about halfway through. I remember throwing to this video. We did it live on our show. This is Joe Biden at a cabinet meeting after he had not had a public cabinet meeting for about 11 months. And here he is handing control over to Jill. I think you'll remember this one.
We're grateful that Jill is here today. Heard that clapping. It wasn't for me when we came in. Here across previous administration, First Ladies have attended these meetings for specific reasons. This is the first time Jill has joined us, and it goes to show how important the issue is, which she's about to speak to the both of us. Today, at the top of our meeting, Jill's going to give an update on the House initiative, White House initiative, to fundamentally change the approach and the fund, how we approach and fund women's health services. So I'd like to turn it over to Jill and for any comments she has, and it's all yours, kid.
Thank you. You know, sometimes the White House surprises you.
And sometimes some things don't surprise you, and you shouldn't be surprised about all of this if you've been paying attention for the last 4 years. If you're a Jake Tapper book reader, you might be surprised by a little of this. Look, there you have a guy who clearly was compromised, the energy levels, his, basically muddled thoughts, but then he can just read enough to basically kick it over to her. But nobody voted for Jill Biden. It's not that Jill Biden or the First Lady in general should have no authority authority to do anything. They do things. They pick their pet projects, and they do those things. But nobody votes for the president so that the vice president can run cabinet meetings, especially when the president himself hadn't run a cabinet meeting, at least a public one, in 11 months. So again, there is something sticky here because now there's so much evidence that none of this made sense. For God's sakes, Jake Tapper even wrote a book about it. Here's Bret Baier on Fox talking about how there's going to be some subpoenas involved, and eventually this is why I think they will all start turning on each other, because nobody wants to be the last guy in Dodge.
Capitol Hill, House Republicans are escalating their pursuit of answers about then-President Biden's health and an alleged cover-up by those close to him. Subpoenas are being prepared, and they could include the former president's family. Here's senior national correspondent Aisha Hasni.
Tonight, Republicans on the House Oversight Committee are readying subpoenas in case former President Biden's White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, and 4 key staffers don't agree to a request for congressional interviews by the Thursday deadline. The committee is investigating the Biden administration's use of the auto pen to sign pardons and executive orders, some still being challenged in court. Chairman James Comer tells Fox the committee could even call in former First Lady Jill Biden, the president's son Hunter, and former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
All right, so things are starting to happen. We might get a resurgence of Karine Jean-Pierre. That'll be good for views. But look, Kevin O'Connor, the doctor, we've talked about him before, and if you didn't see my episode with Dr. Drew Pinsky a couple weeks ago, we got into some of it as it pertained to the prostate cancer screening and how it really doesn't make sense that he has this Gleason score, very late stage prostate cancer with nobody knowing. There's some arguments about whether you test someone at 70, but the idea that the president wasn't getting the blood test, the PSA blood test, is basically, as Drew said, it's basically complete nonsense, that this just appeared out of nowhere. So either this guy was completely negligent or was hiding information or outright lying when it came to giving the president's health reports. The other thing is we all know that something's been wrong with Joe Biden cognitively. So again, did I somehow magically, just from watching videos, could see the same thing you saw and was like, oh, there's probably something wrong with this guy and he should be on medication. This guy either didn't see it or hid it, or he was on medication and they didn't tell anybody. Like, there's a series of ways this all could have gone down, and maybe it's some combination thereof. But again, this is why the rats are eventually going to get off the ship, because nobody's going to want to be blamed for everything at the end. And that's all to the backdrop of the auto pen situation. This is really, and it's another reason why I think this thing might actually have some stickiness to it. This is probably the biggest political scandal. I think this might be the biggest political scandal in world history. We have no idea who the leader of the free world was for 4 years. And America really kind of went to shit during that period. And it was hidden from us. We were lied to about it. They now write books pretending, the very same people who hid it pretend that they had nothing to do with it. And in some sense, the media, here's a layer of it. The media, the Jake Tapper types, if they want to get off the hook on this as the media, well, then they're going to have to hook it on someone else. Well, who would you hook it on? You have to put it on the Biden people. And now with the Democrat Party in free fall, there's not going to be enough people to defend them. So I think this is just the beginning of finding out really what happened there. And we absolutely have to. Otherwise, this could happen again. And trust me, the media wants it to happen. The media would love for Trump to be incapacitated and then to hang a scandal on him. So we will see. Let's talk about balance of nature, and then we will have more on those wacky Democrats. Eating right every day is tough. That's why there's Balance of Nature. Their fruit and veggie capsules pack the nutrients of 31 whole fruits and vegetables processed to preserve maximum nutrition. No additives, no hassle. Add their fiber and spice blend, and you've got a simple system to support energy, healthy skin, and overall vitality. While food prices keep rising, Balance of Nature hasn't raised theirs in over a decade. Make a splash into summer with Balance of Nature. Sign up at balanceofnature.com with code Rubin to get 35% off your first order and a free fiber and spice supplement. Hurry, this offer is only available while supplies last. All right, so you guys know New Jersey Democrat Senator Cory Booker. He is a man who once stood on the floor of the House for 25 hours without peeing. That's basically his number one accomplishment. He then sat on the stairs outside the Capitol for 12 hours without peeing. So that's also pretty good. But he did that in reverse order. To me, you do the 12-hour thing first. People are like, okay, he didn't pee for 12 hours. Then you max out at 25. But he did the 25 first, then the 12. He'll do a 6-hour pee stop, no pee thing next week or something like that. Anyway, he's got a new book coming out because people that don't do anything apparently write books. Here, this is from Politico. Senator Cory Booker has expanded on his historic Senate floor speech from last month into an upcoming book, Stand. Not The Stand by Stephen King, which was spectacular. Stand will be published on November 11th, St. Martin's Press announced Wednesday. In April, the New Jersey Democrat made headlines by delivering the country's longest continuous Senate floor speech, just over 25 hours. The 56-year-old Booker spoke in opposition to numerous Trump administration policies, whether the desire to make Canada part of the United States or cuts to Social Security offices. Okay, I love the way Politico frames it. So he's writing a book called Stand, and it's very clever because he stood, that is true, for 25 hours and he did not urinate. And once again, Cory Booker, we applaud your strong bladder and whatever supplements you're on. That's very impressive. Like, I'm peeing once a night. It just is what it is. What are you going to do? So that is impressive, Cory Booker. But as I said the day that he did it, he accomplished absolutely nothing. He filibustered himself into headlines, I suppose. He didn't stop anything from happening. He just made himself, I suppose, a little more famous. And then remember Chuck Schumer? We're all so very proud of Cory for standing for so long. Like, it's just nothing. And now he's writing a book about it, which I'm sure comes with a major, major 6-figure cash bonus on that. And speaking of people who write books who probably don't deserve to have those books, let's jump back to the Rubin Report's 2-time winner of Douchebag of the Week, by the way, which we give out. We've only given out 5 times so far on social media. And Jake Tapper's a 2-time winner, which is pretty impressive. With 5 awards, the guy's won 2 of the 5. I mean, that's not easy to do. Jake Tapper, he's on this media tour. As you know, he's getting just hit and hit and hit. I don't know that this has ever happened in the history of writing a book before. Someone just getting demolished for basically being part of the fraud that they are calling out in the book. He went on Stephen A. Smith's podcast, along with his sidekick, Alex Thompson, who usually doesn't say much in these things, and was asked if this was a money grab.
In terms of the left, it's a money grab. I mean, that's not the case. It's not. This is. I don't want to get into where my money comes from, but I'm. CNN is my main job, and that's where my main source of income by far. Very few people write books to make money. You write a book because you want to say something, you want to have a legacy, you want to uncover something, you have a message you want to get out there. I don't think people write books about Joe Biden to make money. We are gratified that people are buying this book.
That's a good point.
But I don't think. I mean, the idea that I would do this for money is it's silly and not true.
The idea I would do this for money is silly and not true. Well, did you get paid for it? Because you did do it for money. By the way, I'm not against doing something for money. I believe in capitalism. But what you're saying is you didn't do it for money while you took money for it. And why do you write a book? Well, you said legacy, message, and to uncover things. Well, if it's for your legacy, you did this very backwards, Jake, because you're literally burning up your legacy. And again, I don't think Jake Tapper's like an absolutely horrible person. I don't think he's like a pure hack the way I think some of those other CNN guys, Acosta, Stelter, Cuomo, some of those guys are, right? I don't think he was that. But if this was about your legacy, you drop the ball on that one. If this was about the message, you drop the ball on that one too, because the message in the book is the very thing you uncovered. And your third thing there was about uncovering something. Oh, yes, you uncovered the thing that you were covering up. Congratulations on that. And Stephen A. Smith, who I consider a friend, who is now, went from sports into politics because these things have been just muddled and mashed together. Here he is talking about how the book itself kind of now gives more cred and more gasoline to Trump and MAGA.
There is no way to get around what I'm about to say. When you consider this book Original Sin, and what the Biden members of the Biden administration, along with other people in the political apparatus that is the Democratic Party, when you could take into consideration what several folks, if not many, were willing to do to conceal the cognitive decline that President Biden was enduring, nobody comes out looking better than Donald Trump and the MAGA right. Because the things that they were saying, the things that they were accusing the left of, the things that they were accusing legacy media of, whether it's true or not, they look right. They look like they were on point.
Well, it is true, Stephen A., and we do look right, and we were on point, and we don't deserve an award or a pat on the back for it. We were just paying attention. It's as simple as that. I like the fact that Stephen A. is getting there. I'm crediting him here because he's doing a sort of Bill Maher, and it's a slow motion move, and you just got to kind of bring these people along, but he is getting it, and that's right. And ironically, there are polls now that have Stephen A. in the top 5 of who could be the next Democratic nominee. I'd rather have him welcomed into the new MAGA wide tenfold, but that's a separate issue altogether. But the point is, once again, guys, we were ahead of the curve on something. Once again, the people who are online, the people who use their brains, the people who see videos of a man wandering off into a forest and muddling every speech and all of the nonsense, like we could do it. All of the nonsense that we've seen, we just saw it. We saw it. We talked about it. They didn't. They hit it. And now they're making money, even though they're not doing it for money. I am pretty sure he's going to cash the check. Jake, I'm talking about you. We will shift to Trump and some of the other interesting and positive things that are happening in the country in just a second. But first, wrinkle filler. We've been told for years that wrinkle creams are the key to looking younger. But according to Dr. John Lake, a world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, that's just outdated advice. Most wrinkle products are just glorified moisturizers, Dr. Lake says. They barely make a difference, and some can even harm your skin. That's why Dr. Lake has stepped away from conventional cosmetic practices to focus on a breakthrough anti-aging method some are calling a game changer. It's like Photoshop for your face, he says. You might be shocked how easily this can erase visible wrinkles in under 2 minutes. His clients call it the age rewinder method, and results have been stunning, taking years, even decades off their appearance. To share it with the public, Dr. Lake released a free step-by-step video showing exactly how to use the method at home. It's already gone viral with over 2.3 million views and glowing feedback from thousands of women. One viewer wrote, "I can't believe how well this works. Best results I've ever had. I'll never stop using it." You can watch the video now at bhmd1.com/Rubin or by clicking the link in the description box below. All right, check this out from Eric Daughtry over at Florida Voice News. Breaking: the White House will vote on Monday on the first round of DOGE cuts, officially to defund NPR and PBS, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene says. Monday's vote to defund taxpayer-funded Democrat propaganda can't come soon enough. I'll be proud to vote yes. So this is all to the backdrop, obviously, of the big, beautiful bill. And we covered yesterday, there's feelings on both sides of this thing. There's a lot of DOGE cuts because of the fraud and the people that are on the dole on Medicaid and people that shouldn't be, and young people who can work are getting benefits, and all of the made up names and all of this stuff is coming out of that. There are some people on the right now who think there's still too much spending. We know there's about $50 billion to the wall. There's a huge amount of money for infrastructure projects. Ultimately, it will add to the deficit. So there's a fight there. It's already passed the House, the Republican-led House. We'll see what happens on the Senate. Trump still said it's up for negotiation. But as it pertains to NPR and PBS, they are obviously and have obviously been propaganda outlets. And also, with the internet, I have a phone here somewhere, I think. You have a phone. You might be watching this on a phone. Why do we need the government to take money from you to fund public news? We obviously don't. And the idea that they would be funding public news that would be perfectly bipartisan or nonpartisan is absurd. It all went wackadoodle left. We all know it. So that would be the cherry on top of why we should not be funding it. But if you think that they are nonpartisan, let's jump over to video of, we've shown you her before, Catherine Maher, no relation to Bill Maher. She is the CEO of NPR. Here she's saying that they are nonpartisan.
The White House and some Republicans in Congress, as you well know, have accused NPR of promoting a liberal bias. Beyond that, the former NPR editor, Uri Berliner, he accused the network of having what he called a a lack of viewpoint diversity. How do you respond to those critiques?
Well, I first of all respond by saying we're a nonpartisan news organization. We seek to be able to provide a range of different viewpoints in terms of who we bring on air, the stories that we tell. We're buttressed in this effort by the fact that we have 200 local newsrooms across the country. So a significant portion of the reporting that you hear on NPR is not coming out of D.C. It's coming out of smaller stations in rural area. It's coming out of the Midwest, the Southwest, the Pacific Northwest, lots of Wests in there. Sorry about that. My view is that is a mischaracterization of our work. We do not seek to favor any political party at all. We seek to ensure that Americans have a wide range of perspectives available to them.
All right, lady. We're going to debunk that very simply with one image in just a second. But remember, this is the same woman that said, we showed you a video a couple of weeks ago, we've actually shown it to you a couple of times, who said that sometimes truth can get in the way of their agenda. And the idea that, okay, you have these 200 stations that you guys work with, and somehow that makes it nonpartisan. It's like, we all know, like, just if you don't even have to actually listen, like take in the content, just the way the NPR people speak. They speak in that mindless, progressive drawl. Like, that's how they speak. There's no conservative or sane thinking person that speaks like that. But okay, lady, I'm going to try to be kind and open and willing here to listen to you. You're nonpartisan. Well, if you're nonpartisan, then you're going to have to explain this one to me. Connor, throw it up. This is from NPR. You remember this. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That's Terrence Samuels, NPR's managing editor for news on the New York Post Hunter Biden story. Did you catch that? So these nonpartisan, non-political people went out of their way to hide the Hunter Biden laptop story. The Hunter Biden laptop story that actually was probably the biggest smoking gun during all of the Biden scandal outside of the dementia and auto pen and everything else. And not only was it a huge scandal because of the information on the Hunter Biden laptop and the questions as it pertained to Hunter and how is he working with the Ukrainian energy company, a country that we then funded a war for, which we're still funding and everything else. But the fact that then Twitter, which we know X, but it was Twitter at the time, which we know then was working with the administration to silence people and deboost things and blow up accounts and ban people and everything else, which we know that one of my tweets was included in that. You could not even privately message the Hunter Biden New York Post laptop story within Twitter. So, all right, if you guys are just nonpartisan, you're just not really good at your jobs, and suck it, because you're not going to have any cash to run that ridiculous operation anyway. We've got a bit more on the media side of things here. This is from Johnny Maga from the Wall Street Journal. Paramount, owner of CBS, has offered Trump $15 million to settle his lawsuit against the company for deceitfully editing Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview. Trump reportedly wants more than $25 million and an apology from CBS News. So look, the day where these guys could lie to us about everything and pay no price is over. NPR, PBS, you had a good run for 40 plus years of getting cash from us to promote leftist, progressive, wackadoodle policies. You had it. The gravy train is over. And mainstream media, you guys who have lied to us through selective editing, through not showing stories that you should have shown and blowing other stories that aren't important out of proportion and having headlines that don't match the inside of the story and everything else, lying to us about very fine people on both sides by cutting off literally the next sentence. Your day is over too. We'll see what Trump does. Is he going to take the 15 mil? Is he going to go for 25? Is he going to drop the cash and just take the apology? It sounds like Price is Right. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about Fatty 15, and then we'll have more on some of the good stuff happening in the country right now. Let's be real. Aging shows up in all kinds of ways. Poor sleep, low energy, stiff joints. I've felt it. Yes, it's true. And maybe you have too. That's why I'm excited about Fatty 15, the first essential fatty acid discovered in 90 years, designed to support healthy aging at the cellular level. Developed with help from the U.S. Navy and backed by over 100 studies, Fatty 15 helps strengthen cells, improve sleep, boost energy, and support long-term wellness. It's vegan, clean, and delivers 3 times the cellular benefits of omega-3 trees. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels and help you age better. Go to fatty15.com/Rubin and use promo code Rubin for 15% off their 90-day starter kit. That's fatty15.com/Rubin, code Rubin. All right, so Marco Rubio, I keep talking about this top 10 list that we're going to start doing about who's the top 10 in the cabinet and just around Trump right now, because they're just, so many of them are just doing such an excellent job. Rubio, I really consider number one right now. Obviously, Bobby Kennedy's right there. We don't have to do the full list right now. But Rubio's doing a bang-up job because it's not just that he is doing the right thing by dealing with some of this campus nonsense and getting some of these kids from other countries who are only here to wreak havoc on our college campuses out, but he's explaining it properly. And he's just really, it's just, when someone is doing the job they are supposed to be doing. And listen to this from Marco Rubio on Twitter. The U.S. will begin revoking visas of Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. Now, interestingly, so we know that we are already booting out some of these pro-Hamas students, and it's not because of their speech, although we have every right to do that. If American students started going to literally any other country on earth and rallying against the government or stopping other kids from going on campus and everything else, we know those kids would be kicked out immediately. Every country has a right to defend its culture and its borders and all of those things. No one has a right to be an American. Like, this is all obvious, real stuff. We finally have mature people in charge of the operation. But as it pertains to China, listen to this from N Wokeness, these numbers. There are 469 American students in China. There are 280,000 Chinese students in the U.S. We educate our enemies while they spy and rob us of our intellectual property. Now it's finally coming to an end. So put aside the Hamas protests and the locking of the Hispanic janitors in a closet as they did in Colombia and all of those things. Why is it we would have such asymmetry with China, of all countries, when it comes to students? 460 some odd students that are American are in China, and they have over 280,000 in America. That is an absolutely absurd amount. And then you start wondering, well, why are they here? And are some of them spies? And are some of them here to cause campus unrest and everything else? So you know what? Sorry, Harvard, you've become ground zero for woke nonsense. You have become ground zero for anti-American activities. You're a $54 billion private hedge fund, not a real place of higher education. And the gravy train I talked about earlier, it's stopping on multiple fronts. Here is national treasure Louisiana Senator John Kennedy talking about how American universities have absolutely failed, and Marco's not going to put up with it anymore.
Well, I have read the reports about what Marco, Secretary Rubio, is doing. Look, I can just tell you how I view it. I welcome international students. I don't welcome international students who come here and break the law. I don't welcome international students who come here and threaten our national security. The Chinese Communist Party has an horrific record of sending students to America to do that. And we do need to be careful. It would be nice if some of our universities, like Harvard, would help us screen these students rather than contribute to the problem. So I support what Secretary Rubio is doing. The simple fact of the matter is this has nothing to do with diversity or inclusion. The Chinese Communist Party will steal the hair off your head. And they hate America. They think America is in decline. They think that all we do is sit around all day and debate whether a mother should be called a birthing person.
Well, they're kind of right about that, but we're trying not to do that as much as we used to. But let's just think about the numbers for 1 second as it pertains to the Chinese Communist Party. So if they have 280,000 students in this country, let's try to just run some basic numbers. Let's say 90% of those students are great kids. They're great kids who want to learn at American universities. And unfortunately, they're going to our worst places of indoctrination. Like maybe they come in with the best of intentions and then they end up at Harvard and Columbia and they get radicalized by Hamas. But let's just say that 90% of those kids are here for all of the right reasons, and they're there to study and all of those things. Actually, when I was lived on the Upper West Side of New York City, I lived about 10 blocks from Columbia, and I had an extra room in my apartment, which I used to rent out to college kids. And I had a Chinese exchange student. Her name was Yurin, actually. That's a name in China. Her name was Yurin. Anyway, but she was a lovely gal. I don't think she was a spy. Actually, come to think of it, maybe I lived with a Chinese spy. All right, I'm going to have to do a little research on that. But in any event, if 90% of those 280,000 kids are just good kids, right? That leaves you with 10% that maybe were sent here to spy or to do untoward things or rile up the base or God knows what. Well, 10% of 280,000 students is 28,000 students spread across these universities. Do you think 28,000 kids could end up doing some damage? And let's say 10% of those are really bad kids. That's 2,800. And let's say 10% of those are really, really bad. That's 280. Do you think 280 people could do some bad things? And let's say 10% of those are the worst type of communist, spy, evil, whatever. You get the numbers here. Like, you don't need that many people to do a lot of bad things. So we are just cleaning up. I mean, that's in essence what John Kennedy was saying. We're cleaning up. We don't owe these people anything. We don't owe anyone American protections. And we're starting to become a serious country again. And it's exciting and it's worth doing because we got a country to save. Now, as we are saving the country, the Democrats, now we're going to jump back to, we started with crazy David Hogg. They've started to realize that maybe he isn't the best messenger. Now, he's a very wafy, thin kid. They've decided to go another way now as they've brought in some new messengers. I'll leave it at that for now, but check this out. Leading report says this: breaking, Democrats have engaged Olivia Julianna as part of the strategy to bring young men to the Democratic Party. And I'm going to just, because I'm here and in honor of Roger Scruton, I'm going to try not to make all the jokes that are going through my head. Maybe I'll just pause for 5 seconds and you guys can insert your own jokes. Here, I'll just pause. Here is Olivia Julianna on a podcast talking about how young conservatives are actually, she's nobody, by the way. She's a Gen Z influencer. Everyone's a Gen Z. That means she has Instagram, but they've decided to make her the face of the young Democrat. Congratulations. Here she's talking about how young conservatives are actually with the Democrats.
Well, I also think it's just so abundantly clear that the people who say these things don't actually spend time talking to young men. You know this because we know each other in real life, but I spend a lot of time on college campuses, and I spend a lot of time with
young men.
I love young men. I love frat guys, and in that I've realized, like, even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who support Black Lives Matter. And so I feel like people just kind of lump them into this box when the truth is, again, a lot of them are with us on the issues. They're just not part of our coalition because they feel like they're not welcomed in it.
I would like to say to the Democrats, I congratulate you on your new party leader. I thought Hogg was great for you guys, but you've one-upped yourselves. This girl's great. Okay, the idea that she goes to college campuses and hangs out with young conservatives, like the frat dudes are all like, yeah, let's hang out with that chick. I mean, it's just absurd. But what does she say? She uses 3 examples. She's saying that the young conservatives are pro-choice. There is simply no evidence of that. Simply no evidence. Now, is it possible that younger people have moderated a bit on abortion, or there's a little bit of nuance there or something? Yes. That absolutely is possible, but that she's meeting young conservatives who are saying they're pro-choice is absurd, obviously. Now, pro-gay marriage is different. There is a different view in the younger generation on gay marriage, but the Republican Party and MAGA is pro-gay marriage, or at least sort of indifferent on it, right? It's the law of the land. Donald Trump is obviously for it. He was the first-time president to come in and be for gay marriage, or marriage equality, I should say. Barack Obama was not. So the ship has completely sailed on that. And then she's saying that young conservatives are for BLM. which is the height of absurdity and obviously not true. And it was a giant grifting organization. So is that what you're saying you're still for? Well, now that BLM then morphed into Antifa and then it morphed into the Hamas protests. So is that what you're for? So when she's saying they're for the issues, they're for our issues, are you telling me that pro-choice, pro-gay marriage, and BLM are your big three, and that's why conservatives like you? I think that girl has spent a little too much time at the buffet. There, I did it. I did one joke. Okay, fine. Let's jump back to Jake Tapper for a minute. We'll see how we're connecting this here, because he went on another podcast and he was asked something about his son. And I guess he has a 15-year-old son who's a football player, plays video games and things of that nature. And he's seeing how now the left, he had mentioned his son on one of the shows, and then he started getting a lot of hate about his son. And I think you'll see how we're connecting this to what's going on with Gen Z and the confusion about politics and everything else. Take a look.
My son is now 15 years old, and he's a gamer. He's a football fan, starting linebacker on his varsity football team. The Democratic Party has no way of communicating with him. They have no entree into his world. And in fact, it's interesting, I went on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless, and we were talking about my kids, because I think they were both people without kids. And they asked me about my son, and I said he was, he's a football player and he wants to be a policeman. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son, oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And that was the big laugh. And then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you fuckers are losing elections.
100%.
Jake, welcome to the party, pal. I think as Jake Tapper now gets red-pilled, and you can see it's going to happen, if there's anything left in him, and I do think there is something left in him, he's going to be red-pilled now. I don't know how he's going to deal with that at CNN, or maybe they're going to see the tea leaves change and him being more right-leaning or something will help ratings, because that is where he makes most of his money. As he said, I think he makes about $10 to $15 million a year. It's an awful lot of cash, which is why he can write a book and not need the money that he's still going to take. But okay, your son's a football player and your son's a gamer and he wants to be a policeman. Yeah, your son is probably going to be a conservative, and I mean probably a small c conservative who probably won't care that much about abortion. That would be my guess. Certainly won't care about gay marriage, but definitely will not like BLM, but probably will like law and order, probably will like a safe border, probably wouldn't want his genitals cut off or his kids' genitals cut off, your grandchildren, Jake. So the red pilling is here. So congratulations to the Democrats who are now going to go with this girl as they push Hogg out, and they've got the clown car of people from Lady Eyelashes to AOC and an ever more absurd Bernie Sanders. It's like, that's what you guys are left with, which is a perfect ending to the show. We thought we'd end on a quote today. And this is, I don't know that we've ever quoted Sun Tzu on the show before, but Sun Tzu, The Art of War, never interrupt your opponent while he is in the middle of making a mistake. And of course, he was the legendary Chinese military general around 771 BC. And that's where we're at the moment. So to wrap this whole show together, as I sit here at the Roger Scruton Cafe, a place where conservative ideals are flourishing, and I mean that in the wide sense, as I just said, the small c version of that, the classical liberal connection to conservatism, not, oh, you must believe all of the things we believe. But if you believe in freedom, and you believe in family, and you believe in sovereignty, and you believe in the individual, we're kind of winning right now, at least in certain places in the world. That was very evident when I was at CPAC yesterday, because this is a place where it's working. It is working back home in the United States of America and a few other places. So let's keep focusing on that and let our enemies make their mistakes and go from there. All right, from here, I've got a few more interviews. I think there's a Danish reporter sitting right over there who wants to say hi to me, and a few other things today, and then off to Israel. Again, shows in Tel Aviv on June 2nd, and then in Jerusalem on June 4th, daverubin.com/events. And we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Run it.